So how is one creating their own resistance? And what does it really mean? And people talk about being present, removing resistance. What does that really mean? So let's say you go to a vacation and you wanted that sunny, beautiful chill pool day or beach day, whatever. And once you get there, you expected the sunny day, but then instead it starts to rain or it gets really cloudy. What would people do in that moment? A lot of people on earth at this time would start to be like, why the rain right now? I only have a few days of vacation here and it costed me a lot of money to come here and, I don't want to waste my days. And in that moment, what is happening? They start to criticize the rain, criticize nature for how it is. That is resistance. You are resisting what is right now, how the nature is working. You're resisting the law of nature that is governing everything. Why? Because you want to have control over the weather. You want to have control over what is. That is the egoic state. You see? So when you're in an egoic state, everything is self-centered. We call it selfish, right? Everything needs to evolve around me. So the weather must be compatible, or weather must, provide what I need, what I want in this moment right now. And when it's not, I'm not going to be happy. So what are they, going to do? They're trying to invent something to control the weather outside, right? But we learn the lesson when nature gives us a lesson. There's a huge earthquake somewhere, volcanic eruption, or something going on. We understand the power of nature then. But before, with little things. So something that I would like to share is that the more the humanity is disconnected from what is, meaning nature, the more we are separated, meaning we go into creating our own pain and suffering by creating resistance to what is. And why is that? Because we get so into an egoic state, we get fixated. That fixation creates the resistance, meaning there's an idea, meaning that is a perspective, a belief that you have in your mind that only the sunny day will be pleasant to you. When you get fixated on it, your view gets so limited. That's all you're focusing on, all you need, all you want to get. You see how that works? Narrow-mindedness, limitation. So in that moment, you're aligning with lack and limitation. And when the situation outside is not meeting up to your point of view of what's good supposed to be, or your expectation, what creates is the conflict, the inner conflict between what is and what is supposed to be good. You see what I mean? So the moment you get into that inner state, you start to create your own suffering, your own pain. That's how you create your own suffering and pain, by criticizing what is rather than accepting, allowing what is. It goes out the same way to other people or situations, not just the rain. Every little thing. If a person has that habitual pattern in them that is unconscious. So after criticizing, what happens? They start to complain about the situation. And who's to blame that? They're blaming the rain. Rain is something to be blamed for. The weather is something to be blamed for. And in that moment, whereas that person goes into on an emotional state, they get angry, they get upset, or they can even get sad, overly emotional about it. Why? Because they're so fixated. They're only thinking of the one way that's supposed to be rather than all that is, all possibilities that they could be aligning with, flowing with. If it rains, it rains. There's something to be grateful for about it. And you start allowing, aligning, accepting, and then start to flow with it. There are so many other things that you could do on a rainy day as well that you could enjoy. And that in that moment, you're present with the fact that it's raining, the truth. But when you're not accepting it, you're sitting with conflict, hating, complaining, disliking, dissatisfying. So in that moment, when you're sitting with the inner conflict, you're constantly having this tug of war. So you cannot be at peace. You cannot align. You cannot align with the harmony that is taking place in this moment. Flowing and being still, appreciating, enjoying. You're not calm. You're stressed out. You're frustrated. And then what are you going to do? If you cannot take it, you're going to take it out on someone else. Now you start to fight with the friend that you came with. Everything the friend does starts to irritate you. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? You're irritating me. You see what I mean? Or you go to the desk or a service center and you ask for something and you get easily reactive because you're already holding a lot of negativity, not processing it. And then you're directing it towards someone else. You start to complain. You see? So that's how negativity works. So the more the humanity is disconnected from nature, the more we forget who we are, and then we go into an egoic state, trying to control the nature, which is not possible. You're trying to control Gaia, trying to control Earth. No, that's not going to happen. When they tried last time, well, everything got wiped out. We went into Ice Age, and then we needed to start over. So there's a lesson, there's wisdom in nature that we can connect, that can help you remember who you truly are, meaning oneness, not the separation of the ego. So here on earth, we work with the ego, but when we forget our consciousness or awareness, the ego starts to dominate you, meaning starts to become the main operator. That's when these troubles start to take place. You start to feel powerless because the situation that you're experiencing is always feeling like you cannot have control over it. Always something difficult or challenge, a blockage happening. And you are attracting that. And then you are creating this conflicts and struggles with people around because you're angry, you are reactive, you're frustrated. And the more you are in that state, unaware, you are triggered to feel like you need to have control over them, but they're not going the way you want them to go, then you're going to get angry. You're going to go into a fight mode. That's the survival, the fight or flight. You're fighting or you're defending, and you get into these arguments or little conflicts and frustrating situations. You see, there's a lesson inside it. You need to be still, go out, create that distance, because when you're in an egoic state, everything that is happening is about you because you're identifying. Everything is about you. We call that state of self-centeredness. The world must evolve around me. You may not recognize it, but that's the attitude, or that's the belief that you're holding when you're unconscious. So instead of now complaining about the weather or the situation, you look for what's the purpose? What's the lesson here? What is it trying to tell me? How can I enjoy this? And boom, that fixation disappears. That idea of what is supposed to be good and better for me in my own definition that I decided, meaning my ego decided, you're moving out of it. You're aligning with all possibilities, infinite doors of opportunities. That is the abundance. You're moving out of lack of fixation. And then you can find the calmness. Why? Because you are now starting to accept what is instead of living in that state of conflict. When you have that inner conflict that is driven by the resistance, you cannot be at peace. So you must let it go. Let that fixated idea or belief for how it's supposed to be, that is good, go and allow. We can call it letting things go, meaning let your fixations go, whatever that is. And then, okay, now I surrender. And I'm asking, what is this trying to tell me that is helping me to grow, helping me to see from a different perspective? And how can I enjoy this? You go into a state of gratitude, and before that, state of acceptance. And then before that, state of allowance. And with that, you learn the state of honoring what is. You're honoring what is happening, the nature of how things are, the bigger picture, the bigger purpose, how the universe is working. You go beyond this little egoic mind of fixation. You see, that's how you expand your perspective, get out of limited view of lack and limitation, and start aligning with abundance. That's how you can practice it every day and start repeating it so that you form these new patterns and it becomes more natural to you. And you start to embody the state on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. It takes your conscious effort. Why? Because your conscious effort is part of your higher self. And that's why whenever you are doing that, you start to remember who you are. That is not this little egoic state. That is just a role that we are playing on earth at this time as experimentation, as an experience, as a lesson. But we need to go beyond and above in a human language sense in order to remember. And the moment that you remember, you start to align with the energy of abundance. Every time you do that, you start to move with ease because you're not resisting, you're not opposing what is. When something doesn't go your way, instead of believing that it's rejecting you, everything about you now, the ego, you are saying, what is this trying to tell me? That's why there's a translation, right? On earth, the rejection is protection because you're not meant to go that way, or you're not meant to be in that relationship. You're not meant to live in that place. You're not meant to have that job anymore. Something of that nature, right? You got fired. There must be another opportunity. You can create that moment as a tower moment and moment as a new opportunity rather than sitting with that egoic state. Something rejected me. Now, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? This fixating idea. And in your mind, you have this fixated idea of what is good and what should be good and what should be better. And then you're constantly focusing on it, the limited view once again, sitting in lack and limitation. You cannot see other opportunities. So let it go. What is this trying to tell me? Everything is happening for me. That is what it means. Everything happens with a bigger purpose. What is this trying to teach me right now? Tell me right now. What do I need to grow into right now to have a better understanding of my situation right now? What is this inner struggle that I'm feeling right now? What is this inner conflict, rooted from right now? And what is the lesson in there? that I can grow out of or grow with it. You see, that's the focus. The focus is to getting out of the fixation, expand your perspective, not just aligning with one, but there are many opportunities and you can explore different options and choose. But we are not doing it because of that idea. And the society is constantly pushing people to be conditioned with certain ideas and beliefs as better, as more, as, superior, however it is. And so we are constantly living with these conflicting ideas between what is good, what is bad, and in comparison, and so on and so forth. So understand this process, how it works, how the resistance is created, how it's related to you criticizing and start complaining, blaming, and where is it rooted from? From your fixated idea or the definition or belief that perhaps has been programmed or handed down, or however it is that you're fixating on perhaps. So you need to explore these areas. And once you explore these areas and let them go, surrender, accept what is, start flowing, allowing, honoring. It's called unconditional love, basically. The idea of love is very different from the idea of love that we have on earth. But that is basically the idea. Everything is love, unconditional. But we are putting all these conditions because the society is constantly conditioning people. So that's the game that we are playing on earth at this time. So understand how the game's working, different elements, the variables, so that you can use that to your situation, to your inner state, your beliefs, and all these limitations that you've been conditioned with. So you can unlock, you can get out of that fixation, start flowing. Peace.